Welcome back to day one of E3 2016, powered by Twitch. Man vs. Game and I are here with Hayden to talk Mafia 3. How intense was that trailer? I was just sitting there going like,
yeah,
the entire time.
Looks like there's quite a bit of naughty business you can get up to in the game.
Yeah, you guys covered a lot of ground. A lot of ground, a lot of dangerous ground.
Right.
So, dude, glad you're here. And yeah, let's just start off. Like, what is Mafia 3, and how does it separate itself from, like Mafia 1 and 2?
Yeah, so Mafia 3 is our hard-boiled open-world crime drama. Puts you in the role of Lincoln Clay, who you saw in that trailer. He's a Vietnam vet, also an orphan.
Also a badass, apparently.
Yeah, also a badass.
Right?
He uses that Vietnam training. And really the kind of central conceit of the story is Lincoln comes back from Vietnam, falls back in with the black mob. In our version of New Orleans, a city called New Bordeaux, in 1968, falls back in with the black mob. The black mob gets betrayed by the Italian mob, and then Lincoln kind of launches this war against the Italian mob. And in the meantime, recruits various underbosses to help him in kind of this war against the mob. I think the similarities to Mafia 2 are that we really are focused on creating a strong sense of time and place and a strong narrative, but we also really wanted to make sure that the open world was rich and alive and that there was plenty to do there to propel yourself forward in the narrative.
Right, so you're keeping it like you're making open world, but you're keeping that kind of like that strong story-driven like element there.
Absolutely, and our kind of line is everything that the player does in the open world propels Lincoln forward, either in his war against the mob or his attempts to kind of build his own, mob family.
His empire.
His empire, yeah.
Now, and I'm just assuming that, of course, the story in Mafia 3 is going to be, is it going to be related at all to the stories that have come before?
Absolutely. So we look at it as all one universe, and I think the most obvious connection is the main character from Mafia 2, Vito Scaletta, is back in Mafia 3.
Sweet.
So he's been sent down to New Bordeaux, 20 years ago, and feels really sidelined by the Italian mob. So he's got kind of this vendetta and wants to kind of get back at the Italian mob in New Bordeaux for sidelining him. So he joins forces a little bit reluctantly with Lincoln.
Interesting.
Wow.
But got people.
So I think we've got some footage to check out too.
Yeah.
Let's play this sucker.
All right.
But yeah, oh, here we go. So what's going on right now?
All right, so what we've decided to do here is take on one of the mob bosses in town, a guy named Uncle Lou, who kind of runs the French ward and has turned into a big party. And we're going after one of his pimps, a guy named Oscar Sabato, and killing Oscar is going to hurt Lou's ability to kind of kick up to his mob boss, which is a big theme in the game, is that, kind of always kicking up. And there we were actually purchasing some weapons from our what we call our mobile store, which is an arms dealer that you can call in.
Nice.
Convenient.
Yeah, so here we're going after Oscar, and we're using my favorite play style, which is kind of going in quiet to make sure that we can take out Oscar and eliminate him, and then fight our way out if we have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there again we can see Lincoln kind of sneaking in here to again isolate Oscar and take him out. So. You can go in guns blazing, you can call in reinforcements, you can go in stealthy like this. There's a lot of tools at the players'
You can watch here for a little while, or nope, never mind.
No.
Oh
Good.
man,
Yeah.
This is business.
Right.
there we go. My playthrough might take my time. Like, yeah, let me just watch for a little bit.
Well, and it's funny you bring that up because we are kind of rewarding you with little narrative nuggets when you do that.
Oh,
so if you sneak your way through, chunks of the game, you'll overhear conversations and you'll see little narrative beats that just, again, I think bring the world, more to life, right? If you go in guns blazing, there's certainly a lot that's satisfying about that too, right?
That was pretty badass. The no-look chuck over the fence.
The Molotov,
Yeah.
Link's pretty casual with that. So here, this is actually one of my favorite little mechanics is what we call the sentry. So one of Oscar's guys there was able to make it to a payphone and call in reinforcements, and then we can react to that in lots of different ways. We could have actually cut the phone lines using one of our associates who's a switchboard operator.
Oh, wow.
But in this case, what we're doing is we're calling in some Italian muscle. Through Vito. It's a group of guys that Vito introduced us to.
You got some favors you can call in.
That's exactly
that's awesome.
That's exactly how we treat it. Is they're favors that you earn over time, and you get those through doing things for these underbosses and also giving them territory. As you give Vito more territory, he's able to kind of grease some palms. get this hit squad to be a little bit more effective over time.
That's so cool. I love the sort of like faction war element of the game as well. Does that come into play much in?
Absolutely. So the way that we look at it is there's Lincoln, and then there is the Italian mob. The Italian mob has a couple different offshoots. They've got the Dixie Mafia, which is kind of these guys that come out of the swamps and run part of the city for the Italian mob. There's also this really racist Southern Union group that the mob joins forces with. You have the police that are also kind of a faction or a group in the game that you have to deal with. And then Lincoln goes out and he recruits these 3 underbosses. There's Cassandra, who runs a Haitian gang. There's a guy named Burke who runs an Irish gang, and then there's Vito that again runs this kind of little offshoot of the Italian gangs.
So you guys don't skirt around the racism aspect of it at all.
No,
it's just it's part of like that history, that time period, that time, and
1968 in our version of New Orleans in the South, right? So we're trying to be authentic with it. There is some harsh language in the game, but it's kind of all across the board, right? I mean, again, there's racial slurs directed at the Irish guys, and obviously at Lincoln and others, but again, it's all in the quest to be authentic. And these guys are criminals, right? They're not gonna speak nicely to each other when they're in a heated
so
situation.
You just blew some guy away with a shotgun, like point blank. It's like maybe some harsh language.
Right.
I could take it. I'm okay.
Yeah. So this is actually now we're showing this is one of our cinematics in the game, and kind of introducing one of our big set piece missions. So what's happened here is, through various different activities like killing guys like Oscar Sabato, the player has gotten Lou, this boss Lou, into trouble with his boss Sal, who runs the entire crime family. So Uncle Lou, as we call him, has arranged for this fundraiser on a riverboat for a crooked politician to get back in his brother's good graces. And now Lincoln sees that as an opportunity to take out Lou. So he's rigged this crane to fall and crash on the boat. Now he can go in and take out Lou.
Wow.
Oh man, what a plan.
Yeah. So
I love this setting already, just like on a burning, sinking ship. Here.
Right. And again, we want a riverboat. Very, feels very southern, very New Orleans, in the middle of the bayou. But then again, it's this kind of corrupt politician and all his cronies. So you get to go in there and kind of bust that up. And again, you're seeing a mix of gameplay, right? So Lincoln goes in here and he's a little bit more stealthy at the beginning, and eventually, all bets are off and he's going to open fire. But So as we were talking about earlier, this is one of the things that for me was really appealing about working on this franchise, was that opportunity to take a very strong narrative and kind of dole it out over time and make sure that we have these big set piece missions, which we kind of treat like 10 goals.
Right. Yeah. I love how when he grabbed the enemy, like he kind of struggled for a while. Like, it wasn't just kind of like, you got me.
Yeah, we put a lot of work into the animations. You'll see as we go through here too, we have a lot of different takedowns. So there's the stealth takedowns, but there's also some of the more dramatic takedowns. We have what we call brutal takedowns, which will surprise enemies and stun enemies around if they witness it. Again, a lot of it's very contextual based on. So here's one. Yeah, so that's one of our takedowns. Which again, if anybody was nearby witnessing that, they kind of get stunned for a minute. And you can chain these takedowns together.
Oh wow!
And who wouldn't be stunned by
right, something like that.
I knew him for 8 years.
Serious shit going down, right?
Right. So and again, they're contextual based on the weapon you have and the weapon the enemies have, and so there's a lot of variety. Hopefully, the player will feel like they don't get old over time.
So I see a lot of pickups around those weapons. There was a cash symbol. In what ways do you kind of pick up items and interact?
So money is a huge part of the game, and I would say money's probably our progression system, for lack of a better term. We don't have like XP or other kind of traditional progression systems. Instead, we really look at money as the way that you're progressing, which we felt feels true to
real life.
Right,
Exactly. Pretty much. Awesome.
So as you go throughout the game, you'll be picking up lots of money, and you'll be using that to unlock upgrades, unlock new weapons. Again, as you dole out territory, that's another one of your upgrade paths, and that will unlock new kind of abilities through your associates. So you'll upgrade, again, like Vito's muscle. And then we are, again, not to get too geeky with the game talk, but we are kind of a weapon churn model. So we want the player to be picking up and discarding weapons constantly throughout the game and experimenting.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, again, you'll see a large number of weapons that are getting dropped as we go throughout the game. So, we're pretty rigorous with how much ammo you have. So.
Right, so keeping it fresh, always swapping it out, that kind of thing. So that's awesome.
And then again, you can always call in the mobile store. Obviously not here because you're in the middle of a, crashed riverboat,
It'd
right?
be cool to the van kind of like fly off a ramp and just land on the steamboat and be like, what's up?
Yeah.
It is interesting. Like you and I was experimenting with this earlier today. Actually, you can call in muscle here, right? So the muscle will actually show up and help you wipe these guys out.
Awesome.
Pretty fun. Yeah.
But once you do that, like how long until you can like call in that muscle again? Is that like a one submission kind of thing? Is there like a timer? Do you have to do like do something to earn another favor? Like how does that kind of work?
It all depends. So it costs money to call them in or favors. So if you again do some stuff for Vito, give him some territory, he'll give you a favor. So you can use that instead of paying the kind of fee that it costs to call these guys in. So otherwise, you can call them in, multiple times in a row. If you have, the money or the favors. We only, there's the hit squad, and then, if they get killed, then you can call in another hit squad. So you can only have one active at a time. But
I love that idea where, it's like you can use them to kind of like help progress you through the game, but you might actually be hurting yourself, money-wise,
right?
Because you're just paying so much to, to that.
Well, and where the other thing that we really try to capture here is this kind of tension between. Kind of loyalty and greed. So we do, and we're watching people play the game, and it's funny because you get those players that are just like total hoarders, right?
Yeah, right.
And they're going to put all their money in their safe, and they're not going to spend it on anything.
Right.
And then, but they're torn whenever they're giving out territory to their lieutenants because each of the underbosses, it's not like a happy coalition, right? Like where they're all like, yeah, we're all in this together. It's like, no, I want to run the city. Like I'll run it with you, Lincoln, but like I don't want to run it with these other two jokers. So. Yeah. There's this constant tension, and they're always offering you different rewards.
Interesting.
And so you're looking at it going, do I want to be greedy and get this really cool reward, or do I want to be loyal and give Vito something, because I haven't given him something in a while? So, yeah.
So what happens when you go the avenue of greed? Like, I don't want any favors from you. You just better like help me out, otherwise, I'm. How does it? What's the?
It absolutely has consequences. So. The other thing that I was pretty big on from the outset with this game is that I wanted the player to feel like they were making hard choices throughout the game. And for me, in games, hard choices usually choosing between like 2 or 3 positives, but then knowing down the line that there's some kind of repercussion, right?
Right.
So we have, rather than like having 100 or 200 small choices that kind of build up to something over time, we have these like 20 or so big moments where you're making a decision about what you do, and I'm really making Burke angry.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things we're showing at E3 this year is, if you go to what we call sit down,
right,
which is where you dole out this territory, and Burke is angry at you, and you don't give something to Burke, he might betray you, and then you got to go out and deal with Burke, right?
Oh man.
So yeah, and we've got some narrative context to all that, but I think for players, hopefully, that's going to create a lot of tension, not only. Who is my favorite, but also who do I want stuff from, and do I keep them all happy, or do I go all in with Vito and say, yeah, whatever, the other two can.
I like that. There's that political kind of social aspect you have to deal with. Yeah. Like it's not just going around killing dudes. You have to like do I help this guy out, help myself out, and balance that.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that seems to be like. That reminds me most of like what it would feel like to be like in the Mafia. Like, not only like fighting people or trying to keep other factions happy, but like even people within your own faction, like keeping them happy as well. That's that's great.
We really had sit downs are such a part of like the mob culture, and at least in terms of entertainment, right?
You're right.
And we wanted to create that sense of drama, but again, Lincoln's on this like crazy war against the mob. So the way that we did it is through his relationships with his 3 lieutenants, his underbosses. Yeah.
So is Lincoln just like mostly driven by revenge? Is that like the primary driving force behind him, or is there like?
It's the driving force of the narrative. It's kind of the impetus of the narrative, and we wanted to make sure the player felt that. So hopefully, over time they feel an attachment to the characters that are lost, right? But as a player, that's one driving force for you, but then building up your family and kind of building loyalty with them, because there's other things you can do to build loyalty beyond just giving away territory. So,
like we're confronting.
Tracked him down.
Yeah, so he stalked Lou through the swamp. That's one of my actually favorite little moments, because it's it's Lincoln stalking this guy through the swamp.
Yeah.
It feels like again tying into that whole Vietnam vet thing.
Getting pretty visceral. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I just wish I could hear what they're saying right now.
Yeah.
People at home.
Yeah, Lou as you would expect, Lou tries to talk his way out of it. And Lincoln's not having any of it.
Oh.
Wants to send a message to his brother Sal. So,
oh, man.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what kind of research went into kind of recreating like this like, 1968, was it? Like, how do you, like, if you're doing that, people will, like, I'm sure would be meticulous about, like, what's supposed to be there and not there. So what did you guys do to get to that point?
It was kind of a two-pronged approach. So on the one hand, we did, especially on the kind of narrative side, we did a ton of research in terms of watching documentaries and reading as much as we could and doing interviews. And we're fortunate to have some people on the team who had relatives that grew up during this time period in the South. So we were kind of tapping them for their experiences and their, the stories that they've heard. But a lot of it was just, again, like tons and tons of documentaries, tons and tons of books that we went through, tons of image archives. But then at the same time, we also knew that we were building a game, right? So when we were looking at something like building our version of New Orleans,
right,
we really had to sit down and go, okay, what are the goals of the game first? Well, the city's got to be fun to drive around, for example. Right. So, we obviously took some liberties. There's not as many one-way streets. There's not as many narrow streets. There's not as many 90-degree turns. We had New Orleans is a pretty flat city. We had elevation so that, you feel like you're going over hills and stuff. So we kind of came at it from two different angles.
Wow. Did you actually spend any time in New Orleans? Did you
we sent
research.
So I'd been there a couple times already. We sent a contingent of the team. A lot of the artists, the number of photographs and images that they got is just staggering. But then we had to, again, you kind of just put it all into the blender, and then you take a step back and go, okay, now how do we make it our own, right?
Right.
Because we don't want to just ape a city that exists, because we're trying to build our own version of that. So we pulled from other cities too, in other areas, and obviously the Bayou, which is where you saw that riverboat scene take place. We tried to fold other inspirations in as well.
Man, I can tell you, if the game looks anything like your booth here at PAX or at E3, it's going to look incredible, because this thing is
impressed with the booth.
Exquisite.
Crazy,
right? Talk about that for a second. It's the first thing you notice when you walk into at least this hall, and it's almost like it's like a real, like, like building from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like the details on, it's like 2 floors. You have like a fortune teller booth on the outside. There's going to be a band there.
Right.
Seriously, like a theme park is what I thought of immediately.
Yeah, it's got all that like crazy wrought iron working, and a balcony up on top that you can go up on. Inside, I think I was telling you guys earlier, there's some of the meeting rooms that we have are behind these like sliding bookcases.
I love that.
Like speakeasy or whatever. So
His idea was to just go all out, because there's a lot of great booths here at E3, a lot of like really cool looking stuff, but that one is like the detail and the love. And the money, I'm sure. Well, like, went into that, it was like, it's absolutely, I'm like, wow, how much did that cost? I don't want to know.
I don't know, so I can't tell you.
But like,
that's information that is above my pay grade, probably.
Who makes that call? Like we're going to go like all out when we push this out of E3.
Yeah, 2K, and this is, like, I got to tell you, the beauty of working for 2K from my standpoint, I've been in the industry for a long time, and you work at 2K, and you feel like you have the weight of the organization behind you always, right? Instead of, other places, I think sometimes you feel like the weight of the organization's on top of you, and there it's like they're behind you, and everybody at the end of the day just wants to make a great game and obviously have that game be successful. So I think, the attitude was like, well, let's go out there and let's make it fun, and let's, like you said, like a theme park, like let's make it feel like you stepped into New Bordeaux and immerse you in it from the moment that you walk into our booth, so that when you go and you see the demo, you're already kind of primed for, to be in that headspace, which is cool,
And you could definitely see the love that you guys have for like making that setting, and filling in like all the details, that really make for the immersive experience.
Well, and that's the thing that for me I was so happy with. Part of being at E3, we were talking earlier about whether I enjoy coming to E3, which I over 20 years now almost, I really do. And part of it is because we get to show off the team's hard work. So even walking around the booth, I'm seeing things like, oh, that's a poster we made. That's a movie poster that's in the game somewhere, and now we've got it on a wall here, and people can see it close up or whatever. And it's just nice to see those little touches and details. So
very cool. That must be like really satisfying.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. And again, because how hard the team's working on it every day, So yeah.
Yeah, but Hayden, thank you very much. It was awesome hanging out with you in Man vs. Game, talking checking out Mafia 3. Looks absolutely intense. Love so open world, great narrative it looks like, and I just can't wait to get in there and just make those choices. So
cool, man. Thanks for having me.
When can we expect Mafia 3 to kind of hit home?
October 7th on
October 7th.
PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4.
Awesome. And where can people go to find out more about it?
MafiaGame.com.
MafiaGame.com.
Yeah.
Hayden, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Right. Thanks, man. I really
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hang tight. We'll be back more with more E3 action.